everyone out there. Welcome to DDoc and a heartfelt welcome to Doc Day. I couldn't be more excited. This is our first Doc Day of the year. My name is Stephanie Haack, and it's my great pleasure to host tonight's event and to say welcome to all of you joining us today. If you've never heard of DDoc, we are an international community by and for people living with diabetes. And Doc Day is where we invite people with diabetes to the virtual stage to come here, share their stories, share their advocacy work, and inspire the global diabetes community. And today is going to be a really exciting event, I promise. Today, you can look forward to hearing from people with diabetes from 10 different countries. So for some of you who will know that this event started really small and now it is actually really big, it is global, and it's going to be really great. Our hope is that when you hear all these stories tonight, you will feel understood, connected, seen, and inspired. So please, please, please don't just watch and sit there. Please join us, join the discussion. We want to see your questions, your comments, wherever you are, if you're watching on Facebook, on YouTube. If you're covering this on Instagram or TikTok or wherever you are, let us know what you think of this event. Let us know if you have questions for us or the speakers. And we really look forward to hearing from you. Please use the hashtags DDoc and DocDay, tag us in everything you post, and of course, follow us while you're there. And one more thing before we get started. Once the live stream ends, please don't leave, please don't go home, shut your computer down, but stay with us, because after Doc Day ends, we will kick off Doc Night. This is our virtual after party where we will share virtual drinks, virtual dance parties. It's really fun, so please do stick around. And if you're not watching live, but you're watching the recording, please join us in the online discussions. It's really, really interesting to hear from you. So now we're getting ready to hear from advocates from across the globe. As I said, some of the topics will be a bit hard-hitting. Some of them will be really light, such as life with diabetes, right? So when we asked the community in preparation of this event, what do you want to hear about? One topic came up again and again, and that is complications, diabetes-related complications. So we think this is important to talk about. That's why we invited a couple of advocates who live with diabetes-related complications to share their stories. We will do that later tonight, so please stay tuned for that. But before we dive into the topic of complications, we have a very varied agenda for you today. We will hear about diabetes in high security prisons. We will hear about sports, arts, racial disparities. So lots to look forward to, lots of interesting discussions to be had. But first off, we will hear from some of our DDoc voices. And I just want to give a huge shout out to the entire DDoc Voices network. They are amazing. If you don't know about this program, it's a scholarship program which enables diabetes advocates to attend scientific conferences and then report back to their communities. We at DDoc believe in nothing about us without us, and this program ensures just that. It makes sure that people with diabetes are represented at these conferences, and also that the wider community hears about what's going on there. So thank you to our incredible voices. Thank you to ATTD for welcoming us. And of course, thank you to our partners for making all of this possible. So now it is time for our very first guest, one of these DDoc voices, who joined us in Berlin as well. She's joining us today from India. She's working with the Blue Circle Diabetes Foundation, and they had a very special project for International Women's Day that we want to hear all about. So welcome to the stage, Snehal.
Hello, hi everyone. Hi, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for coming here and telling us all about the foundation and the project that you ran. So you actually, for World Women's Day, you visited a high security prison and did what there? Tell us everything about it.
Okay, so to start with, at Blue Circle Diabetes Foundation, we run a project called as Project Gaia, which aims to create a safe space for women living with all types of diabetes, including their caregivers. And when we were planning what to do for this Women's Day, the discussion started as early as January. And we thought of why not reach out to a marginalized section of the society. And we do understand that there's a lot of stigma associated with women prisoners, especially in a very high security prison. And we also understand that the welfare support systems can be a little corroded. So we decided to do like a diabetes awareness session, talk about nutrition, as well as do a free blood sugar testing at the prison for the inmates as well as the staff over there. So this is the idea that we just like brainstormed, and we decided to go ahead with that.
And what was it like to plan this? Was it difficult? Was it easy? What are the things that you had to think about?
So I wouldn't say it was easy, because this was just a thought in our heads. We had to do a lot of planning. We did not have any connections or leads to where we can get the appropriate approvals to go there, or whether we can do that or not. I mean, we were not aware if we can conduct like a diabetes awareness session at a high security prison, of course, considering the risks about it. But we decided to just go ahead. All of our team members were just continuously looking for leads or connections, sending out emails, calling the prison, and checking if we can do this or not. And I'll tell you, it took us around 1.5 months of back and forth and constant calls and emails to finally get a lead, wherein we reached out to them, explained to them what we want to do, and they were more than happy to welcome us.
That sounds incredible. Good for you for pulling that off.
Yeah.
So what were the results of this? You did blood tests for people living with diabetes or for everyone? Tell us a bit
for
more.
all the for all the women inmates as well as
Mhm.
the staff at the prison, we conducted diabetes awareness session, talks on nutrition, as well as a free blood sugar screening. And around 20% of the people whom we tested came as a shocker that they were living with diabetes, undetected, undiagnosed
They
diabetes.
didn't know.
They didn't know. We also realized that there were a few people who were already living with diabetes over there, and it came as a good surprise that there were also a few who are living with diabetes and on insulin. And it was good to know that even in a prison they were provided with insulin. And we also talked with the medical officers over there, and they talked to us about the different kinds of risks and complications that they face, and availability of insulin can be an issue. So it was great to know the other side of the story.
Mhm. Yeah, so you talked to both sides, to the
Yes.
inmates, to the guards, and you saw that they do have access to insulin, but not test strips. And of course, those are
Yes.
necessary as well. So good for you for
Oh,
running that project. So what's going to happen next? Is this a one-time thing for World Women's Day, or what do you have planned?
so before we go ahead, I would want you to put on the picture we just clicked
Yes,
at the
please show us
prison.
a picture. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was outside the prison. Our team, along with a few staff of the prison over there, this was that. And also the next slide on the various projects we run at Blue Circle Diabetes Foundation. But yes, to answer your question, this was just step one for us. We did not know if we could pull it off, but it felt really good to serve a section of the society which is often ignored. And we are definitely going ahead and planning to conduct further sessions, not just for women but for men as well, across multiple prisons. But again, it's not going to be an easy thing to pull off, but we are there and we are going to be persistent about it.
Incredible. And I have one more question. So I'm getting goosebumps. I know the DDoc team loves this project as well. I'm seeing really, really exciting and excited comments here from the community watching right now. But is it all like this? Is everyone excited about this? Or did you also receive criticism?
So when we started thinking of this idea, we did receive a lot of positive feedback, but again, it was like a healthy debate on whether we should go ahead with this or not. I do understand the risks of it, because we are going to a high security prison, and also comments like they are there for a reason, and why do you want to like pull in your resources for them. But again, what we advocate here for is health for all, and in like diabetes care for everyone around. So yes, we decided to stick with that idea and go ahead.
I think that's wonderful. And I'm so excited to see where else you take this, and maybe you'll inspire other organizations or advocates around the world to do similar things. Yeah, incredible. Thank you so, so much, Snehal, for joining us today. I think that was just incredible. And the next advocate that we will meet today does actually not have diabetes herself. She is what we consider type F, so friends or family, and she runs a diabetes organization in Guatemala. So I'm really happy to have Janina here with us. Welcome to the stage.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for coming and talking to us. So you're also one of the DDoC voices who was with us in Berlin last month. Tell us a little bit about how you got there, your advocacy journey. You don't have diabetes yourself, but who does? Somebody close to you?
No, I don't have, but my little son, have diabetes, and he has 9 years old, and he actually have 26 years, and it was a journey. Because when he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, my world and the whole family seemed to change. However, we could give him the best that was available in that moment, so that he could have the quality life. And then I met more families that, unlike mine, could not buy their insulins and strips to measure their glucose. And that was when I decided to repair the fortune and the opportunity that was given to us, that the journey began.
Incredible. So you started your own organization. Can you share a little bit more about the work that you do in Guatemala?
Yes.
I think you also have slides to present so that people can learn more and look up the organization as well.
Okay. He's my son, and when he was diagnosed, and then it's actually where we are in these days. Okay. Creciendo con Diabetes as a partner of Life for a Child gives now can provide insulins and supplies, as well as education, diabetes education, to more than 340 families across the country. But above all, is this we are the helping hand that they can find on this path that present difficulties, making them see that it also presents opportunities. These families can go with us and learn much about diabetes and the form that they can give the journey. We are supporting them with educations and supplies about 17 years at this time.
Of course, that's fantastic. And of course, we at DDoC know Life for a Child very well, and I hope that everyone in the audience does so too. We've been working with them for many years, and they do incredible work across the globe. And it's great to see somebody like you partnering with them in your country. So tell me, is there something for the people watching now? How can they support people living with diabetes in Guatemala? Is there somewhere we can donate, or something we can raise awareness for?
Okay, I think the best way to support these people, you can donate to local diabetes organization in Central America to provide education and support advocacy for people living with diabetes. Asociación Creciendo con Diabetes doesn't have a funding or another way to donate, because we are working with several donations, and we are open to receive that donations and translate to the people who needs here, and we are in this line to work. And all of donation that welcome. And I think that to attend advanced, to advocate, to improve access to diabetes care and resource in Central America. That is the work, the first work in these times, and improve the diabetes educations, you know.
Yeah, I know that it is really important for your fellow advocates all across Latin America that you're presenting here today. And I don't know if you've seen the comments coming in, but everyone is really happy to see somebody with type F, a mother of a person with diabetes represented here as well, because you do wear invisible capes. It's incredible. And I love to see these really appreciative comments. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
And you also, I mentioned this, you were with us in Berlin for ATTD, the conference here. What was it like for you to attend a conference like this with all the other DDoC voices?
That was an amazing, and the opportunity was great to attending, to be in that important conference, and increase my knowledge and know about all of technologies that we can have in Guatemala and so many countries in Latin America. But it inspires me to do more work to approach the technologies, the accessibility to technologies in Latin America, and the old people to have diabetes can have it. Okay, and that was amazing to know that the many people who works, who advocates, who lives, and inspire me to do more work and continue to increase my knowledge.
Well, we loved having you there. I think you did a fantastic job in Berlin, but also here today. Thank you so much for joining us, Janina.
Thank you.
Next up, we will be joined by an advocate from the UK, and he has so much wisdom to share because he's been living with diabetes for more than 60 years. Incredible. Welcome, Martin.
Hello. Good evening, good day, whatever the time is in your area. 68 years I've had type 1.
68 years. Incredible. So how have you always been involved in the diabetes online community? Have you always been an advocate, or is that a recent development? Tell us a bit about your journey there.
It's fairly recent. When I started to pump in 2016, I used the internet to find out more about it, and then in 2018 I was given a Libre, and I then realized via social media, Twitter, Facebook, etc., that I could actually loop with it. So I was determined to do that because I felt that it would make life better. So in 2020, when I had a new pump, I'd researched that if I got a Dana pump, I could then use that together with various other add-ons and start to loop, which I did. And I've now been looping for 3 years. It's improved my HB1C or A1C and my time in range. So I'm quite pleased with it.
Incredible. And now you've joined the DDoC Voices. This wasn't your first time attending a conference, but the first time in person. So for those who don't know, there are two ways of joining the DDoC Voices with a scholarship. There are virtual scholarships. So you're at your computer and you attend virtually, or you travel to the conference. And you've done both now. So tell us a bit about what it was like for you.
I have. I've done it a couple of times. Once at ATTD and once at the other one, which I keep forgetting what it was. One in Sweden. Yeah, that's the one. The one in Sweden. It's my age, you know. Anyway,
it's a lot of acronyms, isn't it?
I just set my computer up, my laptop, my phone, and so I had a Word document, so I could screenshot pages and screens of what's being presented, make notes and comments. I also used an app on my phone which recorded the session and also printed out what was being said, so I could then paste stuff, so I could actually tweet quite a lot and quite profusely, and I was proud to find that I was at the last conference that I was virtual. I was one of the I think I was the 4th top tweeter for DDoC at that time, most prolific, and that made me pleased. But then going to the live session, it's a totally different animal, and I found that I haven't tweeted as much even since I got back. It's just overwhelming. There's so much there when you attend, from the technology that's being shown to the sessions that are going on. It is just total overload. And then, of course, you don't stop. You carry on into the evening, socializing and whatever. And I don't think I got to bed very early any night at all. So when I came home, I was absolutely exhausted, and it took me a week to sort of get over it. I suppose that's
Same
down to
here,
age as well,
actually.
but I was I was glad to have been there. It was a privilege to attend, and I'd love to attend some more at some stage. But I learned an awful lot. I met a lot of wonderful people, and our previous speaker, Janina, I met her, and she's totally fantastic. And I actually suggested that we get together on a Zoom call one day so that I can actually speak to the children and she could translate. I actually recently made a short 1-minute video for them on their website. The one that's in English is called Growing Up with Diabetes. I can't pronounce the Spanish version of it. I did that the other day, and I look forward to doing the Zoom meeting later on in the year, and letting them know the journey I've had, and the fact that I'm here where I am, not because I looked after myself or the technology, but I think I was just lucky. But it shows that, especially with modern technology, that people diagnosed now can live a full and healthy life.
Yeah, and we see from the comments that it's actually really inspiring. So I don't know if you saw that, but Bastian Haack, our founder, the founder of DDoC, actually commented that it makes him feel young again, which
Right.
is lovely. But people are calling you inspiring. They're calling you a legend, and it does give people a lot of hope to see.
Yeah, I don't know about a legend, a legend maybe. Yeah, I was diagnosed at 5, so it's an awful long time ago. I'm surprised I can remember about it. But I'm here. Hopefully I can pass on the message. And since I was talking about how I got involved in social media and eventually DDoC, which was last year, and that's all just because I've learned so much on the internet about what I'm doing now. I want to pay back, and the way I do it is by tweeting stuff and by talking on various platforms such as this, and hopefully give people some sort of encouragement. The actual meeting, the conference in Berlin, it was an eye-opener in lots of ways, because I did attend a parallel session called Technology for Healthy Aging in older people with diabetes, and that really knocked me to the core. Not because of what they were saying about technology being used, but the fact that they were talking about all the comorbidities and how easy it is when you're older to get problems which then just roll and roll and roll and keep getting bigger. And something that got to me was the fact that, if your levels are higher, especially when you're older, that can cause your gait to alter and you lean forward slightly. And then that can cause you to go off balance and fall. And then, of course, elderly people are more susceptible to breaking their hips and things like that. So it just snowballs and gets worse and worse and worse. And at my age, one of the things that I really am worried about is if I ever had to go into hospital or even into a care home and have my technology taken over from me. Because of this, I actually got up at the end of the session and went to the microphone and spoke about the fact that people with diabetes type 1 or 2 should be center to all the decisions made, and they should be involved in those decisions and not, oh, you can't use that pump, you know, we're going to take that off you, which some hospitals try to do even today, you know. So I would fight tooth and nail against that happening. And so I felt that I had to go up and say something, which I did. And
what was the reaction?
I got a round of applause. It's actually on one of the videos. It's right at the end of the session, which was on 24th of February at 16:40. See, I remember the time. I've got it written down. I just felt I had to say something. Anyway, I got an applause, and a young lady, I can't remember her name, I wish I could, from JDRF in London, came up and said to me that I made her cry. It wasn't intentional, of course, but I just wanted to get over my view.
Good on you. And I hope this also illustrates that being a DDoc voice and attending a current conference, being it virtually or in person, it doesn't just mean tweeting. We always talk about paying it forward. That's the motto, and everyone finds their own way. And there are so many, multiple ways. And one of those ways is also sometimes standing up and saying something and making your voice heard. So good on you. And thank you so much for sharing all this and everything that you do as a DDoc voice and an advocate.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Steffi.
Thank you, Martin. Now, we've heard a lot about the type 1 experience and perspective, but here at DDoc, it's really important for us to say that, of course, all types of diabetes are welcome. And actually, we're all stronger if we work together and collaborate. So we want to invite Heather to the stage. She's from Zimbabwe, and she lives with type 2 diabetes. Welcome, Heather.
Hi, Steph. How are you?
I'm good. I'm having a fabulous time with everyone. I hope you are too. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your advocacy journey and what led you to the DDoc Voices.
Okay. My first experience with diabetes is I was pregnant. So it was actually gestational diabetes. And I actually didn't know much about the condition. So after I gave birth, I was told that I was now diabetes free, but only a year later, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So that's when the journey began. At first I was confused. I didn't know where to start from since I didn't know where to get the support. So at first it was actually a lonely journey for me, trying to find out for myself, doing my research. What is this diabetes all about? How best can I manage it? But with time, as I linked up with more people and organizations in the diabetes community, it became quite interesting, and that actually fueled my passion to keep researching. I was then accepted as a representative of the IDF's Blue Circle Voices network. So I'm one of the Zimbabwean representatives in that network. It's a network of adults living with type 2 diabetes, mostly. And then that's when the real advocacy journey began. So I was advocating internationally with IDF, mostly just via virtual networks and other virtual assignments. And then with time, I started getting invited, making a name for myself. I get invited to different platforms, virtually and even physically. So for the DDoc, it was a fellow DDoc voice from Zimbabwe who told me about this platform.
Little shout out to Tino Tenda here. We love him very, very much.
Yeah. So at first, I wasn't really sure what it was all about, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to be selected. Surprisingly, I made it for the ATTD in Berlin, and I learned so much. And
was there a specific session at ATTD that struck a nerve with you? Anything that stuck with you?
I would say the session about disparities coming from Africa, I identified with most of the things that were said, that there is so much disparity, and in Africa and other low income and medium income economies, sometimes talking about devices is not even that lucrative, because you have to create that environment first where you can be able to use the devices. So you have a situation where you want to advocate for the provision of devices, but then the people have no food. The people are traveling so many long distances to go to the nearest health center. The people don't have electricity to be able to use the devices. So there's so much that needs to be done. As we advocate for better medication and better medical devices, we should also advocate for other things that will make the use of the devices more meaningful and more lucrative.
Agreed.
So there's so much work that needs to be done in Africa. Education itself, because there is so much ignorance when we talk about diabetes, and we have so many people who have it and who don't know it, or who don't want to admit that they have it. So as an advocate in Africa, there is so much that still needs to be done. A lot of work that I and my colleagues still need to do.
Yeah, luckily you're not alone in that. And I'm just so happy that we were able to bring you to this conference, because I think it's really, really important to have you represent the African community, but also the type 2 community, and be able to work together with your fellow advocates across the continent to improve access to so many things there.
Okay.
You're one of a couple of type 2 advocates, actually, within the DDoC Voices community. And it's a growing number, which is lovely. But how do you think is it different, and what do you think should happen to make sure that more type 2s raise their voices and join advocacy as well?
Yeah, I think you should continue inviting us and other type 2 devices. Yes. Yeah, we should continue having more type 2 people on these platforms. And being one of them, it's really my job to encourage others to come along. Yeah.
So everyone watching now in the audience, if you live with type 2 or any other type of diabetes for that fact, we will open up applications in July again, and we hope to have even more people with type 2 and other types of diabetes join us. Heather is a fantastic example, and the comments show that you're really beloved as well. So thank you so much, Heather, for joining us and telling us all about your journey.
Thank you, Steph.
As you can see, it's really important for us to build a diverse community here with the DDoC Voices, and also in the wider diabetes community. And diversity is one of the topics that we're going to speak about next. So our next guest is a man of many talents. He's a podcaster, he's an advocate, he's a stand-up comedian. I'm talking about Chelcie Rice, and he will be speaking about racial disparities in the medical system in the US. So welcome, Chelcie.
Thank you, Steffi. So good to see you. Wish it was in person. Had too much fun in Berlin meeting you all. Hello to everyone from DDoC. You guys have truly changed my life for the better. So good morning and good evening.
That is so lovely to hear, and I can only give that right back to you. It was great to have you with us in Berlin as well, and amazing to know you as part of our DDoC family and the network. So you're here to talk about medical disparities, and specifically about the fact that it is a different experience if you live with diabetes in the US and you're Black. And maybe some people in the audience will be wondering, why is that, and how is that possible? How in 2023, a nation like the US, why are there racial disparities like this?
Right, and that was one of the things that I guess I noticed when I was in Berlin, that there seemed to be, and it wasn't something that anyone had said to me directly. It was just a feeling that I got, that there seemed to be a misconception about, because either I'm an American or Americans are thought to have had so much access to healthcare and other opportunities to better take care of their condition, whether it's diabetes, cancer, whatever, that there are no obstacles for us to be able to attain the treatments that we need to better manage our condition. And it's just not the case, because the United States has a long history of marginalism, basically marginalizing people of color, whether it be Native Americans, African American slaves that came to this country, the Jewish community. Good enough to get diabetes. It was thought to be just a Jewish condition, because they thought that Jewish people were more had more anxiety, they were just stressed out, and apparently they thought that Black people were just so happy-go-lucky, which is kind of my twisted sense of humor. Is I can't see anyone being that happy-go-lucky being a slave. So it's that was the whole mindset. And so when you don't think a person is even able to get that condition, so it just goes ignored. And so this was a systemic problem that was almost basically created. And when I say systemic, when it comes to marginalized people in the United States, and when it comes to people of color, a lot of people seem to think, well, that was a long time ago, that has nothing to do with today, which is not the case, because everything that was done back then, whatever was done to my great grandfather, as far as him not having the right to vote, him not being able to live where he wanted to, him not being able to go to a restroom where he wanted to, him not being able to obtain wealth so he can pass it down to my grandfather, so my grandfather could have passed it down to my father, so my father could have passed it down to me. All that was done to my great grandfather or grandfather, that was intended to affect me.
Today in 2023.
Today in 2023. Exactly. So that was all done to prevent me from having wealth, or to having my father be able to pass something down, whether it be land or just money, or stocks and bonds, anything of that nature was prevented from people like me from having that wealth today. And so the same thing happens with health, in a sense, because when you ignore a person's condition, obviously you're not even treating them as a human being. And so these are the things that get passed down. African Americans were oftentimes experimented on. Even as women, they were experimented on without anesthesia during the days of slavery. Fast forward to, say, 1970, there were people of color being experimented on in the penal system. So these things are deep rooted into the fabric of America, so to speak. So that was one main thing that I want to hopefully get, especially folks from other countries, to understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all that it seems in this country. For instance, we've gotten to the point where the insulin companies have lowered the out-of-pocket price for insulin, which is great. Why does it take a lifetime to do the right thing? I don't know, but that's, but
conversation for another day. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the next step is, how do we get that information to the marginalized communities? How do we get this information to the Native American communities that aren't being thought about, period, as it pertains to diabetes and their health? So that's the next step, because I think right now, even with that particular instance, we're kind of, okay, now going like, okay, now what? We fought to get the insulin prices down, so Now what? Well, the now what is to get the information to the communities that never had that, that didn't have access to it, or just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit more about what it looks and feels like to live with diabetes in the US, specifically as a Black person?
Historically, when I speak of like the experiments that were done at Tuskegee and throughout history, that builds a distrust, because this is something I said during one of the sessions at DDOC. Medical professionals, whether they're nurses, nurse practitioners, doctors, they are seen as a member of authority, the same way a policeman is. So right offhand, we think, okay, well, whatever they say goes. I don't question what they say. I just take whatever they prescribe to me, or whatever information they give me, and I just take that to heart. I don't question. I don't ask questions about something that may not affect me, because we see them as a member of authority. We don't understand oftentimes in the communities that are marginalized that we're the ones with the power. If the doctor's not providing me the information that I want, that if there's something that he prescribed for me that doesn't make me feel well, fire him. And so this is what happens when in marginalized communities, because they're under the impression that they don't have any power, which is part of the systemic. You convince a person that they have no power, then you have power over them. This is the whole process. And so where we need to turn the corner is providing this information to these communities to reprogram, in a sense, that you do have power to better take care of yourself as it pertains to your health care. And so, like I said, it's oftentimes in America, we see it as like, we've got everything, access to this, that, and the other. And there are countries that are much more poor than the United States. I understand that, and I sympathize and empathize with that. But all is not what it seems here. There's the grass over here is just as full of crabgrass and clover as it is anywhere else. It's just not shown.
Yeah. I guess one good thing is that this topic is starting to gain traction, and that there's actually research being done into this specific thing, also with regards to diabetes. So there is research that clearly shows that Black people and people of color in the US are less likely to be prescribed newer medicines, insulin pumps, CGMs, or have access to that, because of course there's a financial element there as well within the US system. And same goes for likelihood of DKA, being hospitalized with severe lows as well. So Black people and people of color are more likely to end up in hospital with these complications as well, and also more likely to develop complications, which we're going to talk about more later as well. But there is research that shows that this is a fact, but people still find it hard to actually see that, right?
Right, exactly. And one of the things that you spoke about is that the information that is provided to these patients, say whether it be information about a pump, to look into a pump, or comes from physicians who have a bias. They look at the patient and say, well, they don't seem to have a whole lot of education. So if I tell them this, they're probably not going to understand it. So they just give them whatever, or they tell them whatever, but just based on the fact that they don't think that they're going to either understand it, or they've labeled them as non-compliant, and then they don't want to provide them with that information that they need, giving no consideration that they may understand, or that you can take the moment to educate them.
Yeah, absolutely. We see similar issues in different countries, also in Germany to a certain extent as well. And I can see in the comments that people, for example, from South Africa can really relate to that as well. Right. And we've been talking a lot about or you and me, we have the type 1 perspective, but speaking about the majority of people with diabetes, of course, this also comes into play when we're thinking about type 2 diabetes and how it's treated, how the risk can be reduced. but it's easier said than done, especially if you are part of a marginalized community. Can you
Right.
tell me a little bit about that as well? Sharing
Yeah,
from your peers with type 2?
Yes. I mean, I know so many people with type 2, and there seems to be a heavy marketing of pharmaceuticals to people with type 2. I don't know if any of you had an opportunity to even remotely watch any American television, but you constantly see these. There's a, I guess there's a blueprint for how they portray people with type 2 on television. They're either older, overweight, people of color, and that's the way they market these pharmaceuticals to type 2s. And to me, I wish there was always about how to, better eating choices, exercise, as opposed to filling yourself with these commercials about here's another pharmaceutical, here's another drug that you can try, here's something else you can ask your doctor about. And it just seems to be a cycle. The next pill coming down the pike is going to at some point be on television. I mean, I'm thankful for the fact we've got Dexcom and Libres on television for folks with type 1, but now they're being taken over by folks that don't even have diabetes.
True. Yeah.
Asking for prescriptions for a Dexcom. It's like, and that hurts because that attention gets taken off the folks with type 2 and type 1.
Yeah,
Because
agreed.
The civilians are thinking that it's just something that they can just, play around with now.
Yeah. Okay, Chelcie, one final quick question. Is there something for people out there in the audience watching right now, one thing that they can do specifically to support Black folks with diabetes or people of color in general?
Right. The most that I can really provide is a suggestion, is listen. Whenever people with a chronic condition speak out about something that's bothering them, that they don't understand, that is bothering, that is hurting them, all you have to do is listen. Maybe empathize with them, put yourself in their position. Because this is one of the things about, the diabetes online community. There's a unity because we're all unified by this condition. It breaks barriers, racial barriers, all of that. Because if you take the time to listen and to respect another person's point of view or their voice, then this goes for people of color, the trans community, the gay community, all of it. All you have to do is listen. You don't have to, if you don't feel like going out in the streets and marching, that's fine. But if you're not one for petitioning, fine. All we ask, anybody should ask, is just that you listen and then educate yourself. Don't sit there and whatever's being shoved down the pike. Just listen and empathize.
Yeah. And that's exactly why we invited you here today, so that we could listen to you. And I can see from the comments that this topic really resonates with a lot of people. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing all that with us today.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. I love you all, and I hope to see you all soon.
Right back at you. See you soon. If you're just joining us now, this is Doc Day, and we're hearing from so many incredible diabetes advocates from across the globe. One of the topics that we will be discussing later soon is diabetes-related complications. But now we will start talking about different ways of advocating for people with diabetes. We love to see all the comments and questions. Please keep them coming. Follow us while you're there already. And now I'm really excited to introduce our next guest. When we talk about advocacy, we hear a lot about sharing petitions, making meetings with elected officials, but there are various ways of raising your voice. And one way can be art. So next up, we have Katie from the UK, who is using her art to advocate for people living with diabetes. Welcome, Katie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And what an amazing talk to be following.
Absolutely. But I know this one will be just as amazing as well. So you use art to advocate for people with diabetes. Tell us how you started with that. How did that happen?
So when I was in my kind of later teenage years, I was really struggling with my mental health, emotional well-being towards diabetes, and in this really intense period of burnout. And I was really struggling to communicate this with my diabetes team. They wanted to listen to me, but I just couldn't quite articulate what was kind of going on with my diabetes. And so I realized that one thing I could do is that I could make a picture. I could paint what I was feeling. And so I sat down and I made this painting and I took it to my clinic and I said, this is it. This is how I'm feeling right now. And this is how diabetes is going for me. And this was this first way of really advocating for myself in diabetes spaces through artwork. And it opened up all these conversations that hadn't been taking place before. And I maybe hadn't even realized myself that these conversations needed to happen. And it just kind of started this series of events of using art to advocate for both myself in these places and then the wider diabetes community as that has grown.
Incredible. And I can so relate to that. Sometimes it's really hard to find the right words, and it's beautiful that you have another tool using your art to communicate your feelings. And I know that you brought this picture with you because I think with that introduction, everyone wants to see it now. And you have a few more pictures. So I'm going to leave the stage to you and you're going to walk us through your beautiful art.
Thank you
so
much.
Is yours.
So this was the first painting that I really created that I've just mentioned. So this was actually taken from my clinic. It was kind of shared around the clinic and started opening up these conversations about myself and then about other young people within the hospital. And then it was taken to an event with Diabetes UK, who were trying to put together some prototypes for young people transitioning from pediatric to adult services. And it was taken to this event and it started these conversations again. And they realized that these conversations had not really been taken place, even though they were so important. And they were asking really, why were young people not engaging with these services and why were they not engaging with these prototypes? And this painting started these conversations about making sure that we really think about this different perspective and about how young people are feeling with their diabetes. And so I attended this event and I went and spoke about this painting and I helped them try to make sure that young people's voices were involved in their care. But it really, I was 17 at the time, and it really started this kind of thought process in my mind about what other spaces were talking about us without us, and how many spaces were really failing to listen to the voices of young people. And then also that question of how could I start to use artwork more frequently in advocating for both myself and other people with diabetes. And I was really interested in this question about where creativity could start to fit in. So this was my next piece of artwork that kind of got out there into the community. I entered the competition to illustrate the National Pediatric Diabetes Audit in 2019. And the question that I was asked was, what does a good day in clinic look like to you? And this was a huge question. And I sat there for absolutely ages thinking about how I would answer this question. And I realized really it was less about the numbers. It was less about what popped up on the screen about my HbA1c. And it was more the feeling when I left clinic that my healthcare professionals were standing beside me, that they were supporting me, and that I was at the center of my care, that they were surrounding me and empowering me in my diabetes. And so that's what I tried to capture on this. I illustrated my DSN and my dietitian, who were kind of key members of my team at that point, and made sure that was something that could be reflected within the audit as well. So I then, having advocated in this way by making this artwork, I was then became part of the National Diabetes Audit for the Adolescent and Young Adult Audit and the research steering groups, and really tried to make sure that what I was creating in my artwork was then reflected in the numbers and that I could advocate in those very professional spaces and these research-based spaces using artwork and making sure that what the recommendations that young people needed to be in these audits could be reflected in a different way. And then this year, for Hypo Awareness Week, I was thinking about how we try and describe hypos, and there's really the impossibility of capturing such an abstract part of diabetes, the way that it's so difficult to put into words how it feels to have a low blood sugar. And so I thought, what better way than to use a tool that is equally as abstract and to take art and make sure that we can start to communicate what it's like to have these low blood sugars. And so these were two paintings because I found that trying to sum it up in one painting was just impossible. And I realized that I had two different kinds of hypos, these really intense red traumatic ones, and these much slower ones where everything kind of slows down and it feels like my head is in this kind of bubble situation. And even though I've spent a lot of time thinking about myself, how I would put hypos into painting, when I shared these on social media, the thing that I really enjoyed the most was hearing other people's reflections of these paintings and the way other people could draw things out of these images that I hadn't even considered, and see parts of their lived experience reflected in these paintings that I had never really understood myself. And I think these conversations that are taking place between other people with diabetes and then professionals and researchers and all of these things that were coming together based on conversations that were started through these artworks was really, really special to me, and something that I thought was a really incredible tool that we could start to broach this barrier in communication about diabetes, that's something that's so abstract. But my social media advocacy has mainly been around these digital drawings. This is what I produced most of the time. So I really wanted to start creating something that was really positive and uplifting, because I know that some of these early ones are a little bit more heavy. And so I started making portraits of people with diabetes. These are all portraits, self-portraits, but taking portraits of other people with diabetes to kind of share these really empowering messages. They had quotes alongside them to try and make sure that we're all, showing off our technology if we want to, and we're celebrating these parts of diabetes that we don't always see celebrated, and that we can do that through art. That's a completely different way of communicating these things. And then these messages around small progress is still progress, that I think are really important to get out there as part of the diabetes community.
Okay, T, you see yourself that you have so many fans out there and they're loving this possibility to hear the backstory of these paintings. And I know that a certain someone, and probably a lot of people in the audience, especially love the one, "Don't call me non-compliant or uncontrolled." You know that we care deeply about the language that we use when talking about diabetes. And this one is so striking as well. Thank you so much for sharing all of that and bringing these images with you. One of the comments said, "A picture says more than 1,000 words," and I couldn't agree more. Is there one last thing that you want to tell aspiring artists or just people living with diabetes in this community?
Yeah, so I think something I get quite a bit is that I can't make artwork because I'm not an artist. And I think actually, no, everyone can make art. Everyone can have these creative spaces, no matter if you're creating masterpieces or if you're just taking time to reflect on your own diabetes in a different way, or advocating for people with diabetes in a slightly different way. I think this is something that everyone can have a go at, and I really encourage everyone to try just taking a moment and exploring your own diabetes, or how you can advocate for diabetes in a different way. And healthcare professionals, how can you integrate this into your care, and how can you have these conversations in a slightly different way? I think this is for everyone.
Beautiful advice. Thank you so, so much. I know a lot of people will be inspired by that. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Our next guest is not here for the first time. She was at Doc Day in 2021 when she was just starting out with a project relating to diabetes and sports. And now she's back, ready to present the results, which I find really exciting, even though it's about sports. So I'm really happy to have Ines here from Croatia joining us on the stage.
Hi to all of you, and it's nice to hear you all again.
So great to have you here again. Tell us about your project. How did it start? How did it go? And what do you have to present now?
Yeah, so just a quick reminder for everyone, if they haven't heard or if they just need a reminder, this was the project about sport and diabetes, obviously, about tackling diabetes with sport. And throughout the project, we wanted to spread a positive message that everyone with diabetes should be given the same opportunity to pursue their dreams. Wouldn't that be in the school, in work, but especially in the sport field? So we have created this, I would say, simple, comprehensive, but also easy to use publication that quickly provides information about basics of doing sport when living with diabetes. and the idea was to enable to all of persons to participate in the sport activity. Publication contributes to debugging the stigma that one cannot practice sport if they have diabetes, or can help clarify many misunderstandings, but also can serve as a step-by-step tool for everyone who is interested in the topic of diabetes and sport and engaging in the sport activities of any kind. Something I like this, I would say, that have never existed because of the complexity of the project that we have, and the need of combining different types of experts. So in this project, we had medical experts to have the proper information about the topic, obviously, but we also had sport clubs as the coaches that know the difference and how to make it more understandable, especially for the coaches. But also we have had the patient experts to share their experience, and some other external experts such as nutritionists, pharmacologists, psychologists, sports scientists, parents of athletes living with diabetes, and a lot of different people have passed through this project, either as a writer or reviewer or experts or any different kind of experts.
This is fantastic. And maybe I could have used this, because back when I was diagnosed, that's when I stopped doing the sports that I loved so much until then, because I just struggled so much with combining diabetes and that specific sport. So yeah, it's lovely to see that the next generation has resources like this. Good for you. Good job.
Yeah, basically that was one of the common answers and the comments that we had, that I wish I had this. I wish I had this when I was doing sport. So now when all of the technology came and everything, it's really amazing to have this. And I would wanted to say a big thank you to all of the DDoC voices, but all of the other diabetes community that have helped to making this project be up and be here. For the beginning of the project, we wanted to have like five translations for the partners of the project, but after all of the DDoC voices and all of the conferences and talking about the project, we have approached with idea of translating the handbook to more than 25 languages. They are not yet done. That is a lot of work and job and everything, but soon they will be online. And I need to say that everything is free. So you can go on our website, sportsanddiabetes.eu, and you can download your language that is up on or will be up on, and just download it and share it with others. It is really free to use for everyone. We have two types. We have a type for coaches, parents, kids, youth living with diabetes, but also we have for little kids like a strip version of this, just to motivate them to doing sport when they're diagnosed with diabetes.
That is just lovely. So do I hear correctly that you still need support in translating this into as many languages as possible?
I mean, yes, it's always, we are always wanted help and everything, and in some languages there is only one person who is translated, and there is a lot of job. So in some translations have been made by few people, so joining forces in translating, it's amazing thing. And hopefully it will soon be online. But if you want to participate and help with translating, just call, answer, put the comment, or just write at info@sportsanddiabetes.eu, and you will be given the opportunity to translate it.
Great. And maybe you can see there's a question from the audience. Nupur, one of your fellow DDoC voices, is asking, Ines, what made you think of this project? What sport do you play? She enjoys long distance running.
Yeah, so so when I started, it was like 7 years ago almost, when I started to volunteer in sport, but also in the diabetes community. And with that, a lot of people started to asking questions. What did you do? Just basic sharing experience. But what made up with this project was that a lot of parents have approached me with thought that coaches are discriminating kids living with diabetes because they don't know what to do with them. They don't know how to deal with diabetes. And with this, it just started like we should do something for them, because I was volunteering in the European projects from the sports side, and I just gave them the idea, and everybody liked it. And now I need to say that at the end of this project, a lot of partners have said we want to do it more for them, because I'm quoting them, they felt the love that diabetes community was giving to them as the sport clubs, and they want to do something to share. They wanted to do something, and something more, even more. But they really enjoyed during this project, and they want to disseminate this project as much as possible. And I was doing a lot of sports. Basically, the most of them are in water. So I was swimming, synchronous swimming, but I ended up in water polo the longest time.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that you're not done. I know that you have big plans. So hopefully you will be back on the stage very soon to present what's going to happen next. Maybe.
Hopefully, yes.
Thank you so much, Ines, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, at DDoC events, we often talk about access. We've talked about this today. We talked about access to insulin at our most recent symposium at ATTD. And for those people who are privileged enough to have access to insulin, the next step that they are fighting for in many cases is access to CGM. And that is something that I know is really relevant to a lot of advocates out there. And today we have invited someone who's been fighting for this very thing in the Netherlands for more than 4 years. So welcome to the stage, Orietta.
Hi everyone.
Hi, Orietta. So you've been working on this for 4 years, is that right? How did you get started advocating for CGM access?
Well, the thing is, actually, I have type 1 diabetes. I've had it for 20 years. And me and my husband, we really wanted a child. And my A1C was by far not good enough for a healthy pregnancy with type 1 diabetes. So my nurse, she suggested a CGM. And I really did not want any other technology on my body anymore. But she convinced me to try it. And within 2 months, I realized I never want to do without anymore, because suddenly I had so much control over my type 1 diabetes that I realized this is changing my life. And then I started looking into how can I keep using this, if not for pregnancy, but for the rest of my life. And then I found out that it's not covered by insurance in the Netherlands. There were only a few hundred people in the Netherlands who could use any kind of CGM back then. And out of 120,000, so a few hundred is very, very low. Yeah. And then online I met another woman with type 1 diabetes who was thinking the same thing. And we just decided to advocate together. And we started a petition. We started talking to a lot of members of parliament. We had a lot of, we were in newspapers and on TV a lot. So we really had a lot of momentum at that moment, which led to the Freestyle Libre 1 and 2 being covered by health insurance for everyone with type 1, and also for people with other types of diabetes who use insulin 4 times a day. So I'm actually very proud of that.
That's a really
But
big achievement. Yeah.
yes, thank you. But the problem obviously is there's also RT-CGM, all the other types of CGMs, which are still not covered by insurance in the Netherlands, which is pretty hard to defeat at this moment because well, what I'm encountering is that both health insurers and doctors are saying, well, you have a freestyle Libre, so it's fine now. So that's the biggest challenge now.
Yeah. So, but you want access to real-time CGMs, and you want choice. Obviously, you want to be able to choose the product that is working best for you. I understand that. So you're going to keep fighting. Do you have any wisdom to share? Because I know a lot of people out there are fighting for the same thing in their countries.
Yes, well, there are two things that I think are very important. The first thing is that, well, when you want to advocate, then you should figure out who actually makes the decisions, because it usually isn't the public figure that you think it is, but it's some kind of institution behind the institution, behind the person, and they are being influenced by a lot of organizations and people. So you need to find them, and that can be kind of hard to figure out, but well, you can figure it out. That's the first thing. And the second thing is kind of a harsh truth, and that is that we actually have to do it ourselves. We really have to advocate for it ourselves, and we cannot wait for the big diabetes organizations that are supposed to advocate for us, and we cannot wait for a health ministry to do it for us, because, well, a lot of people don't really realize the impact of type 1 diabetes, and a lot of organizations really well, care about their own existence more than they care about advocating for what we actually need, which means that they will agree to much less than what we actually need. And that's what I found is the big difference between advocates from within our own community and advocates from official organizations. We know what we actually need, and that is what we are fighting for. And the organizations, they take every little win and say, see, this is why we are great. And well, it really shook me up, honestly, to find out that, well, maybe I was a little bit naive, but that is how the world works. So, well, most important thing is we have to advocate for ourselves, but we are obviously not alone. We are a very big community. There are a lot of people with diabetes who want to advocate and who can do this and who want to share their stories. And so that's also very well, empowering as well.
Yeah. And I guess the point that you're raising, you're not alone, is also really important, because you're in this for the long run and this work is exhausting. Do you have any tips for that?
Oh, maybe I can use some tips, honestly. Well, when I started this together with Loes Heijmans from the Netherlands, we never thought... Yes, exactly. Well, we never said that. We never thought that it would take this long. We thought we would fight for a couple of months, and then, the politicians would take it further. But well, here we are 4 years later. We have made some bigger and smaller steps, but we are definitely not there yet. So you really need to take care of yourself. Put yourself and your own health first, and also you need to let other people help you, which is something that I struggle with, honestly. But it's very important that you don't do it.
I can relate to that.
Don't try to do it all by yourself. Yes.
Yeah, because diabetes advocacy burnout is a real thing, and I think a lot of people out there have been fighting. Some of them alone, some of them with others, for a long time, and it is important to take breaks and try and do this together. Yeah.
Yes, and in the least, you need someone to vent to.
Yeah, agreed. Well, it was lovely to have you here venting to lots of people watching from around the world. I know that this was really inspiring for lots of people. We can see that in the comments as well. So you keep up your fight, and hopefully you'll be back someday soon with even more success stories to share with us. Thank you, Orietta.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I think that was a great lesson in the importance of grassroots advocacy, and that is something that our next speaker cares deeply about. From the Netherlands, we're moving to Australia, which is where people have been fighting for CGM access as well for a long time. They now have huge success stories to celebrate, and another success story is something that Renza will now tell us all about. Renza, welcome to the stage. Renza, we cannot hear you just yet. You have to unmute yourself.
Ah, look at that. You'd think I'd know how to use technology, alas.
Happens to one person every time. At least it was
Happens
for
to
me.
me. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. You're here to tell us about a little success story that happened in the past couple of weeks, actually, in Australia.
I am. Before I do that, I was really interested to hear Orietta's talk, because we do now have access for all people with type 1 diabetes. We don't have access for all, but access for all people with type 1 diabetes for CGM. And I really appreciate the comments around not burning out, because that was 15 years almost of really strong advocacy. And I was working in a diabetes organisation in that time, and I can tell you that there was a lot of dedication and work in the organisations as well as from the community. And I guess that's a bit about what I want to talk about today, which is our massive, well, I wouldn't call it a massive win, actually. We'll call it a reprieve that we had, because we had a bit of a shock while we were at ATTD, actually, and that was that we learnt that Fiasp was being taken off our PBS. So our PBS in Australia is the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, and medications that are on there are subsidised. So a full price prescription on the PBS is $30 now. If you have a healthcare card, it is significantly less than that. And we were told that we had a month, basically just over a month really, before it was being removed from the PBS, and people would need to pay the full price. And this hit the community before it hit anybody else, and it was grassroots advocates that absolutely got the ball rolling with this. And I think David Warren, one of our DDoc voices, known as the Bionic Wookie, wrote a really great blog to kick things off. And at the same time, Belinda Moore, who I know is also on, who is also watching, worked with advocates in the community to start a petition. And yay to the DDoc voices who picked this up and shared it and got it out there. But we found out just a couple of weeks ago that we have a reprieve, and that reprieve is that we have an extra 6 months where it will be on the PBS, and hopefully in that time the major players, the department and Novo Nordisk can play nice and find a way to come to some agreement so that it is still available at a reasonable cost for people with diabetes.
Fingers crossed. So you have 6 months of time that you can use to fight for this exact thing.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, but it was a community effort. Sorry,
how do you see this happening? What are your plans? Who's fighting for this? How are you coordinating?
Yeah, so I think, I'm here really just to talk about the grassroots efforts. It was a community that got this started and then was really vocal and did not stop. There were news stories, there were meetings with MPs, there were letters to papers, there were all of those sorts of things that I think often people think, my voice doesn't matter, I'm just one person, but it becomes a really loud choir. And that's the thing that's incredible. This community moves mountains. It absolutely does when we all come together. And this was a really great example of that. And I will say, we need the grassroots advocates, but we do need our organisations also fighting for us, which is exactly what they were doing. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't see. And there was a lot of that happening. Now, you know, my role now is not really working in that space anymore. So I didn't have a front row seat to it in this example, but I have had in the past. And I will say that there is a lot that happens, and I can only obviously speak from the Australian perspective, but there is a lot that goes on that you can't really, you know, shout about. You know, those meetings that happen, they're really unsexy, I've got to say, but they have to happen. And those meetings also happened alongside what the community was doing. But gosh, the community was loud, and that is always a good thing. And the way that Aussies all came together to fight for this was really remarkable.
Yeah, incredible. And you had some international support as well, from what I hear, right?
Oh yeah, we did. And you know, I sort of spent a bit of time looking through who was signing petitions, and there were a lot of very familiar names. Part of our DDoc community got on board, and how grateful we are, because, you know, this community is stronger when everybody supports each other. And it was just such a generous way that people just jumped on board. But, you know, I say this all the time, and I believe it: community is everything. Community is everything. And this community never, ever surprises me, because people will go into bat for each other and support each other in ways that are truly remarkable. And they do it generously and quickly and selflessly. And gosh, you know, how absolutely lucky we are that we had that community doing that. But, you know, we've got David on this call watching, we've got Belinda, and we've got Leon, and they were certainly leading a charge there. But the way the community stepped up was just incredible.
Yeah, and a great example, and hopefully great inspiration for many more of these campaigns to come. And yeah, we can't wait to hear more about this fight that you now have 6 months for. Fingers crossed for that. Renza, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to say goodbye for now, because we'll see you.
I'll be back
later at the end of the live stream once more.
Lovely.
Thank you.
All right. See you later. Bye.
Now is the moment that I know a lot of you have been waiting for. As I said, when preparing for this event, we asked the community, what is a topic that you want to see discussed? And the answer was complications. So let's do that now. Let's talk about complications. Now, I know a lot of us feel quite anxious about this topic, and at the same time, a lot of us see it as simple reality because they live with complications. I myself was diagnosed with complications a few years ago, and what helped me most back then was hearing and reading all those stories from other people, sharing their experiences, because that side I was never told about. I was only ever warned of preventing complications, but I had no idea what reality with that might look like. So that's why we decided to invite a number of people with complications to share their experiences with us. And the first person that I'm going to invite on stage is coming in live from Peru. I'm inviting Catherine.
Hi,
Kath. Great to have you here.
Love to.
So
to
complications is something that you feel strongly about this topic. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how this plays a role in your life.
Well, my journey starts 40 years ago. Yes, 4 decades ago, and it was a roller coaster because it was a roller coaster emotionally, mentally, and also medically. I had a lot of complications, as you said. I was not aware of the complications as before I had them. So these complications came into me all at once, and I was like, oh my God, what is happening to me? I had retinopathy, neuropathy, nephropathy, and all this pathy and words. And one of the things that make me realized that I have to stop working and start saving my life was that in 2008, I got 2 tumors in the breast. This was an strange, not so common diagnosis as retinopathy. And it's a benign fibroinflammatory disease of the breast, but this is very few people have this, and is mostly seen premenopausal women with type 1 diabetes who may have other diabetes related complications. So what you just said about reading the experience of other people, peer support and everything, I was not so familiar with that, but I start looking for the community, because the doctor I saw, he told me, oh yes, I have read about that in my books while I was studying.
Oh,
but
wow.
I have never had a patient with that. So I have to be operated to have surgery or not. Then I discovered a blog in English, so I started to I'm in South America, so I started to this journey into looking for stories of other people. And there I found the blog of a girl that was my age and had this diagnosis. So she told that she got surgery, and after that, the tumors appears again. So what I decided was to make a very thorough sorry about that.
No
a
worries.
very thorough visits to the doctor. Visits to the doctor every 3 months. They made me a core biopsy, and it was hard. It is not fun to live with complications because you don't know what it is. It is, with all my complications, I just have fear, results, fear of the future, knowledge, and hope, pain, everything at once.
Everything, yeah.
Yes,
and something that you feel strongly about is the connection between physical complications and mental health. Do you want to talk a bit about that when we're speaking about all these emotions?
Yes. Well, I think every person that is diagnosed with diabetes may have, that's the ideal world, right? Can have a psychology therapy, because when you have your diagnosis, I was 6 years old when I got diagnosed, and my world was upside down, and the world of my family was also upside down, but I never got help. I meant, so after all the things, after complications, after this fear of the future, what is going to be, why I'm having so pain, and why my doctors in my country do not know what I'm going through. I got in depression. So every single complication, the first one was retinopathy, and it was like, oh my God, I'm going blind. What is it? I am scared. I have laser surgery. So I thought no one could understand me. But when I have these blogs, I found out that I was not so weird. I was not weird, you know, and I know persons that have more than 30 years without complications, but in my case, I have a very poor treatment because I didn't have a glucometer. I have bobbing and bobbing insulin. I remember my mom boiling my glass syringe. So it's surreal. It's Stone Age, you know, and I'm not so big. I'm not so older, but it was great. A very hard work for me to work my mental health because of this depression and anxiety that I got. Mental health for me is so important. We need to be more conscious of our emotions, what we feel. I had type 1 diabetes for so many years, and 5 years back, I just realized I didn't accept my condition. And that was like, what? I didn't accept my condition? No. Every day I woke up, I fight with diabetes. And that is really, really a lot of work. And now I am accepting, every day I have to accept not only diabetes, also the complications, and also what I have to do. So what I did was to get an insulin pump in the US. And in that fight, my family was a great help. They are a great help. Yeah. My family is my peer support, my first peer support. I mean, they encourage me. I think I've not been here if my dad didn't said, yes, I'm going to inject her insulin. Because in a third world country where when you are diagnosed, there are so many myths, tales, and everything about insulin that I thank my dad for that. And my mom.
Yeah, maybe that's the response to the question that we see right here on the screen. Where do you take your personal power from? What helps you stay positive? So I hear that your family has a big role to play there.
Yes, and I'm not always positive, you know. It's unreal to say that I have retinopathy, I have autonomic neuropathy. Oh no, it's just that now I see life in another way. And I know I can give that to the community, my experience. For other people, not to make the same mistakes I did because of misinformation, not diabetic education here, we have economic. You have to be in a position to buy things that the government doesn't give you. So it is hard, and we are fighting for insulin, not test strips, insulin first.
Yeah.
And then test strips also, but people want CGMs and insulin pumps. But we say, if you don't have a glucometer and insulin, how can you imagine to have an insulin pump? So
that is such an important topic that you're raising here. I mean, we've discussed access pretty much all night, and we always do, we always will. But with complications, my main learning was it's not your fault. And that was the hardest thing to accept for me. And I'm speaking as someone who lives in Germany, in a very rich country with a healthcare system where I have access to pretty much everything I need. It's still not perfect. But for me, the struggle was accepting my complications and accepting that they're not my fault. It's a completely different story for people living in other countries where access is an issue, and you can't even, if you don't have the tools, how are you supposed to reduce the risk of actually developing complications?
That's so true. That's so true. And what I wanted to say to the audience, people that live with diabetes and people that don't live with diabetes, is that diabetes complications are not our fault. I had a burden because I consider me a burden in my family for being so expensive, for insulin, injections, etc. And now I think we make things the best we can, and with all the tools we have.
Yeah.
If we have more tools, it's going to be better. So we are going through this, and I hope that people can understand us when we have complications, and maybe we are in we it's not that we failed in our treatment, is that complications can come.
Yeah.
Some for some before, for some long-term complications. But yes, I live with complications, and I would like to, say you the peer support is the best.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that, because to the diabetes community out there, and I hope that you're seeing those comments as well, this is so inspiring. It's so important to hear. You're going to make me cry if one of us starts crying now. We're not going to do that.
No.
No, it is really so important to share these stories, and I know it means a lot to us, but also to everyone watching. So thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you. Now, we've heard from South America. We're now moving to Asia. The next person we'll be talking to is Anita from Indonesia. Welcome, Anita.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi, Steph. Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. So you were also among those people who raised this topic and said, you have to talk about this, we have to talk about this. So we said, hey, how about you talk about this and share your personal story with complications?
I live with type 1 for 26 years, and I developed diabetes related complications after I gave birth to my second son. So I developed pregnancy complications. So during my pregnancy, I experienced early contractions in 27 weeks of pregnancy, which I had diabetes. There's a bleeding in my eye, but I cannot do any surgery until I gave birth. So after I gave birth, I still remember the moment I saw my baby. I mean, I tried to remember his face, fearing that I will lost my sight and I cannot be able to saw him anymore. And it's difficult. Why? Because I don't have any information about complications before. Mm-hmm. I get information about complications after I have complications, not before. Not instead of preventing information after I have it. So after I gave birth, I got the surgery. I have laser surgery. I had eye injections, laser surgery, vitrectomy surgery, because I still have bleeding in my eye. That's one. And the other complication is diabetic nephropathy. And it's funny because I don't experience any symptoms at all. It's just out of nowhere. I asked my doctor to check my kidney function, and apparently it turns out to be 65% stage 2 kidney disease. So that's the interesting part. I have no information at all about complications until I developed one.
And you say that is because really complications are still considered a taboo in your country, as in many countries.
Yeah. Yes.
Why do you think that is?
It seems like a stigma. Yeah, it seems like a stigma because when they told you that you have complications, it means it's a death penalty. So many people with diabetes in my country prefer not to do screening instead of knowing that they have complications. it seems like it's the end of the world. So they prefer not to know about it instead of knowing it and pursue for further medication to treat it.
And what do you think the community, you, me, everyone watching, what can we do to change that, to change the face of complications?
Educate and empower yourself. After I had my eye surgery, vitrectomy for both eyes, we made a video, education video, and it was distributed across the country. So they don't have this fear of seeking further treatment for their eye, for their eye treatment with their experience. And screening. In December last year, we had this project along with the Minister of Health. We had diabetes complication screening for people with diabetes under comprehensive one. It includes kidney, heart, blood vessel, eye, hearing, including mental health. And the report was given to our doctors, and I spent like 2 weeks having meeting marathons with my doctors to solve my complications. But I mean, it's a great, I know that I can do something with my complications instead of just doing nothing.
Yeah, that is really wonderful.
And empowering yourself. Yeah. And I have no information at all about kidney disease. So after I got diagnosed with stage 2 kidney disease, I worked together with the kidney community. I met people with diabetes for 14 years. I met people with diabetes who do kidney transplant. I gained information, a lot of information about it. And it makes me feel safe. I mean, that, okay, I will be okay, although I have diabetes complications. I will be okay.
And is that also the message
So
that you want to give people out there who are listening, who are maybe afraid of complications or maybe already live with them?
Yeah. Yeah, don't give up. Just do your best. Pursue your treatment as good as possible. Just don't give up.
And keep going. Yeah. Same to you. I can see from the comments that this is relating. So many people can relate to this. So thank you so much for joining us, Anita, and for sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Now we will welcome our final speaker for tonight. She also lives with complications. She's based in the UK, and we've heard about so many different kinds of complications, and she focuses on the eye area, and that's what she's going to talk about tonight. Welcome to the stage, Bernadette.
Hi there. It's lovely to be here this evening.
Hi there. I'm so happy to have you here.
It's great to be here.
Bernadette, you're the final speaker. Tell us about your personal experiences with complications.
Okay, so I have had type 1 diabetes since 1996, and in the year 2011, I was diagnosed with diabetic macular edema. I'm not sure how much of you know about diabetic macular edema and where that occurs in the eye, so I've got a couple of pictures. So the first picture I want to show is of the eye, and I hope you can see on the left-hand side, there is the macula. And the macula is a tiny, tiny area of the eye, but it's such an important area of the eye. And there is a part of the macula called the fovea. So the next picture shows the fovea. So on the left-hand side, you have a picture of it's a bit like a V shape, and that is where central vision is. And a healthy fovea looks like that on the left, but on the right-hand side of the picture, you'll see the same area of the eye, and that has diabetic macular edema. And in fact, that's a picture of my fovea, and that is full of fluid. Now, if you have a fovea like that with diabetic macular edema, you're going to have real problems seeing centrally, because the fovea really is responsible for central vision. So you're going to have problems with seeing people's faces, being able to read, being able to drive, be able to ride a bicycle, and be able to use a computer, and perhaps even be able to use a phone, because our central vision is really taken away. And that's what happened for me. So I've had real issues with that. And unfortunately for me, my job as a teacher, as I was then, really did it really depended on having really good vision and be able to see and recognize the children's faces, because I worked with really young children. So unfortunately in 2012, I lost my job as a teacher. And then the following year, I lost my job in all aspects of things that I wanted to do. And then I lost my driving license, and that was really hard for me. So I had to really decide what I was going to do next in life. I was in my early 40s. I had a long way to go in life, and it was like, what am I going to do now? And honestly, I just didn't know. I hadn't got a clue. I hadn't really anticipated this was going to happen for me. So I then, for me, I had to concentrate on things I could do and not on things I couldn't. So I decided in 2012 to begin to volunteer, and I volunteered in universities and in hospitals, and try and give the patient lived experience to those working in that setting. Mm-hmm. So I started to basically work upon with healthcare professionals and show them what it was like living with that condition, and even give them the opportunity to see inside my eyes and understand what it was like with diabetic eye disease. And then from there, I began working with pharma companies. So I've given about 6 or 7 pharma companies the opportunity to understand what it's like for patients. Through their really important work, they need to understand what it's like being a patient, and so that bringing that experience to them. And then I then had the opportunity to be on the board for NICE. So NICE in the UK, it stands for the National Institute of Clinical Health and Excellence, and they're in charge of giving guidance and advice for healthcare and social care in the UK and perhaps worldwide even. So I did that as well. And I've been on a committee there for the diabetic retinopathy guideline committee. And then I started working with charities. And I've been working with JDRF on a photo shoot recently, bringing complications forward to that. So that's been useful. But my most important work, I think, is with the Macular Society. And with them, I've brought out and helped with them to bring a space where people with diabetic macular edema patients can go. So we started a Zoom group with them, and we started with them bringing once a month just a place them to meet. And then we brought out a WhatsApp group so they can also, really talk about their own feelings and also help support them in that as well. And I was asked, what can I bring tonight? What can I bring? What 2 messages can I bring? And this is very much, it's not nothing about us without me. It's nothing about us without us. And so as a community, we wanted to bring 2 things. And that was firstly about technology. We really find technology difficult with sight loss. I find it hard to even see this screen. So we find it hard to use technology using CGMs, the software, the hardware, and we need help in that, making that more accessible features that is on those. We need to bring that forward. And the other thing was the HbA1c drop. And we have found that really difficult because a lot of us have lost sight because we brought our HbA1c down too quickly. And there needs to be greater guidance in that. And there needs
people
to be
actually don't know about this.
No, and we're finding a lot of people don't realize that if they drop their HbA1c quickly, their eyes may have issues. Not all eyes, but if you have retinopathy to begin with, you may well do that. And so we need greater research into this, especially if your HbA1c is high, let's say 11 or 12, and you want to drop it down to, let's say, 6 or 7. then there needs to be better guidance into that.
Such an important topic that you're raising, because people who manage this shift in A1C are actually giving it their all, aren't they? They're putting so much energy and effort into managing their diabetes and improving their health. And at the same time, they often don't know that some of this needs to happen step by step.
Yes, indeed, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for raising awareness about that. I hope that message was loud and clear for everyone. And we saw a comment, and I couldn't agree more, that you're a great example of persistence and really, finding incredible ways to keep going and actually do a lot of good, because I know you're an inspiration to many out there, and you're really, raising awareness and changing minds about this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Bernadette. And now, before we end, it's my pleasure to invite Renza back to the stage, because there was a lot of input. This is a really heavy subject for many of us, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to keep talking about this for a little while longer. Renza, how do you feel having heard all of these stories?
Oh, look, it's never easy talking about diabetes-related complications, right? I think that we can all agree on that, and I think we need to think about why that might be. I know when I consider that in my context of somebody living with diabetes, it's because I can still remember the words that the very first endocrinologist spoke to me when I was diagnosed 25 years ago, and they were terrifying. They still scare me today. You know, and I think that those scare tactics that so many of us have faced have shaped how we feel about complications. So, you know, there's a big part of me that really would like to crawl under a big rock and never ever think about them. But equally, I know that there is
part of me will join you.
Join me.
Yes.
But equally, I think that when as a community we speak about complications and the tricky stuff and the taboo stuff and the topics that don't get much of a showing, when we speak about them in a way that speaks to each other and in a way that we you know, really connect with, that is great support. That's where we find great support. And hearing those stories, I think it's really important. And thank you so much to the speakers who so generously did that tonight. Yes.
Whatever it is, whatever time it is. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, we're not here to tell people to make lemons out of lemonade, but it's just lovely to see the community coming together, sharing their stories, supporting each other, and really just having examples. Because for me, complications were always like a black box. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know any lived experience, and just seeing that life goes on after that diagnosis, and that there's so many ways of treating these complications, and that there is hope after that is really empowering.
Totally agree. And, you know, I've spoken about this and written about this a lot in the past, is that the way that complications have been spoken about is it's like an endpoint. Right. Yeah. So it's like, if you don't look after yourself and you're a bad diabetic and you're non-compliant and all of those lovely words that get thrown at us, you will get, and then you insert the scary complication with the scary photos. But that's it. Like, there's no conversation beyond that. But there are people living long lives with diabetes related complications, and they're the stories that we need to hear about, you know. And, you know, the idea of, if you are diagnosed with a complication, you're told you didn't look after yourself, you could have done better. Well, what is the point of looking back at that point in time? I want to know what the next thing is how do I, you know, what do I need to do to manage this? How do I live well, or just live? You know, what does that look like? And we need to hear from other people and see other people, and speaking about it in these platforms and in support groups and online. And we've seen, you know, a couple of years ago there was a really active hashtag, because we love a hashtag in the diabetes community, talk about complications, and that was getting people speaking about complications for the first time. And what happened every time someone did that? a heap of people would say, I've never had this conversation before. I've been dying to have this conversation with others. This is the first time I've been able to do that. So this is important that we're creating those opportunities.
Yeah, it's lovely that you mentioned that, because luckily that was just in time for me. So when I got the diagnosis, I knew there was this hashtag. I knew there were people starting to get the conversation going, and it made me feel so much safer than if I'd really been alone with all of that. And I hope that for some people out there, this event tonight did just that. And hopefully it started a conversation. We see so many comments coming in, so please keep those coming and keep interacting. We're a community, right? So if anyone in the comments is opening up about their own experiences, please be there for each other, because that's exactly what this is all about.
Absolutely. And do go and search the hashtag Talk About Complications, because there is a lot on there. And again, it's people sharing their stories and opening up and being quite vulnerable and having really useful dialogues and supportive dialogues. So there is a lot out there as well, you know, and it has to continue though. So you know, amazing work, Steffi, you know, pulling this together tonight, to you and the DDoC team, you know, choosing speakers who, you know, have been able to share those stories so beautifully and eloquently. And I mean, just have a look at the conversation, in the chat. It's people want to hear about this, but they want to hear about it in a way that's not threatening and scary and with finger pointing.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we were trying to do here. And it looks like it was a great start. So thank you so much for being part of that, Renza. Thank you.
Oh, I'm very happy to come on and say what an amazing job everyone's done. Amazing. All of you.
Right back at you. Thank you so much for staying up in the middle of the night just for us. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you very much.
Now, I want to say a final thank you. Thank you so much for everyone who joined us today, all these incredible speakers, for sharing their stories with us tonight. It was really special, and I know this resonated with a lot of you because I can see the comments coming in. For those of us who are watching live, remember, the night is not over because we're about to kick off Doc Night. You can see the link right there. It's kumospace.com/Doc Night. This is a platform that allows us to have relaxed conversations, virtual drinks, virtual dance parties. So stick around for that. And if you're not watching live, please do join the chat conversations anyways. But before we move on to Doc Night, I want to thank a few very special people. First off, the wonderful DDoC team. So they have been working tirelessly to pull all of this together. I'm the one in front of the camera, but actually there's an entire team working very hard to make this happen. So thank you to Hanne, Morgan, Tebe, Katharina, Laura, Renza, Natalie, and of course, most of all, Bastian, who started DDoC more than 10 years ago. Thank you. And again, thank you so much to the DDoC voices. You've heard from some of them tonight. And there's such a huge network of advocates that has grown from this, and we couldn't be more proud. So shout out to all of them, the virtual voices, the in-person voices, and the entire network. And of course, once more, to ATTD for welcoming us, and to our partners for making it possible. I'm thanking Lily, Dexcom, Diabaloop, Medtronic, Sanofi, and .cool. And don't forget, the next opportunity to apply is just around the corner. We're opening up applications for EASD and ISPAD on the 1st of July. So thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. Thank you for your comments. Keep them coming. This conversation is only just getting started. If you like this event, of course, follow us, but also check out our YouTube channel, because there are a lot of more sessions recorded from previous events, so you can keep watching and keep hearing from diabetes advocates. And watch out for the next dates. So we have a couple of more doc days coming up, one in German language in June, one in English in August. And of course, there are more symposia to come in autumn. And please do keep an eye out, because the DDoC Voices will be attending and covering the DDG conference in Berlin and ADA in San Diego. So stay tuned for that, and please join us. Thank you again. This was our Doc Day. Thank you for being part of it. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again very soon. And now it's time for our doc night. We hope to see you there in just a minute.